Last time on Bleach chapter 622. After the arrival of Sosuke Aizen, the Shinigami weren't all too happy to see him again. They were even more upset when they learned that Shinsui was the one that let him out of the Muken. When they questioned his decision to release Aizen after all the things he's done to them, Shinsui silences them by saying that they cannot save the world with dignity alone. To defeat evil with evil, he can think of worse things. However, he can't undo any more of his seals, so Aizen is stuck, bound to this chair. Another wave of these monsters try to attack Shinsui and Aizen, but Aizen wipes them all out using Hado number 90, Kurohitsugi. Meanwhile, Byakuya confronts Shinsui, telling him that his actions were an insult to them all. But Shinsui tells him to save his issues with it until later.
Because, the fate of the entire universe is at stake.
After all the eyeball Mimihagi monsters were wiped out, Urahara points out that Aizen has gotten even more powerful than when he last fought Ichigo, meaning that he's gotten even stronger while being locked up in the Muken for a year and a half.
Bullshit.
I'm sorry?
That is a load of bullshit and you know it. You mean to tell me that Aizen, who spent a year and a half locked up in the Muken, has gotten even stronger?
And you are surprised over this. Why?
Why wouldn't I be surprised over this? We didn't know what Aizen was doing when he spent a year and a half trapped in the Muken. For all we know, he could have been doing nothing. Or maybe he's gotten stronger because of the Hokyoku inside his body. Which begs the question, why didn't the Shinigami try to extract the Hokyoku from his body in the first place?
Okay, while the Hokyoku theory might be plausible, we don't have confirmation as to how Aizen has gone stronger, but Lunar, keep in mind, this is Sosuke Aizen we're dealing with. He's gonna pull off stuff like this before, so anything he does at this point shouldn't surprise you.
Oh yeah, that's right. He is the king of trolls after all. Okay, fine.
Now all that's left to take care of is the dark veil that has enshrouded the Serite. Aizen's Kurohitsugi has left a couple cracks on the veil, so all he has to do is release an immense pressure of his Ryatsu. However, this results with the Ryatsu that the Shinigami collected to scatter, destroying the gates. However, Aizen tells them that it also won't be necessary. If they can't get the Shinigami to the Soul King's palace, then he'll bring the Soul King's palace to the Shinigami.
Wait. Let me see if I get this straight. Aizen is going to use his Ryatsu to bring down the Soul King's palace, crashing down through 72 barriers all the way down to Soul Society, meaning that the, 10 chapters we spent on the Shinigami gathering and collecting Ryatsu to create this goddamn gateway to the Soul King's palace, and of course let's not forget about the whole Ryatsu amplifying machine, was completely pointless.
Well, when you put it that way, yeah.
Okay. I will admit this chapter has plenty of stuff that did bug me, but at least in this chapter, Aizen seems to be the only Shinigami so far that has accomplished something and got stuff done ever since the Shinigami have gathered. And the funny thing is, he was doing all this while sitting on a chair.
Meaning that this is a good chapter for Aizen fans.
Yeah. Too bad for the rest of the Shinigami though. Well, except for Shinsui, of course.
So will Aizen be able to bring down the Soul King's palace to the Serite now that he is even powerful than he was before? Find out in this week's chapter of Bleach.
Hey guys, LunarSpawn27 here, bringing you Bleach, chapter 623, Against the Judgment. So the chapter begins with Aizen destroying the veil of darkness that surrounded Serite, as his next objective was to shoot down the Soul King's palace. Rukia tries to stop Aizen, but Shinsui intervenes. Even more Ryatsu surrounds and envelops Aizen, but before he could even do anything, all that Ryatsu disappears. According to Shinsui, it was futile because Aizen's bindings weren't meant to extinguish his Ryatsu, but to keep it close to him in check. In other words, the bindings were meant to suppress the distance between him and his Ryatsu. So he can't unleash all that Ryatsu from a very long distance, meaning that he can't shoot down the Soul King's palace. And it was all thanks to the guy who created those bindings, who is none other than Mayuri Kurotsuchi. We then get to learn a little bit more about Shinigami and Ryatsu. According to Mayuri, the Ryatsu of the Shinigami will continue to flow as long as the heart is still beating. So if the heart stops, the Ryatsu stops. However, when it comes to the criminals that are imprisoned in the Muken, they can't die. Which is kind of strange because that would mean that there are other people in the Muken that are immortal just just like Aizen, right? Unfortunately, there was no reason as to why the criminals in Muken can't die, and I can't think of a reason as to why they wouldn't be able to. I guess it depends on the criminal maybe, or is it because of the Muken? I'm not sure. But it's also the reason why Mayuri created these restraints, to keep Aizen's Reiatsu in check as he pulls out this round device thing, to which according to Aizen was a device used to alter the degree of the restraints. I'm actually okay with this reasoning as to why Aizen couldn't use his Reiatsu to shoot down the Soul King's palace, because if he actually did accomplish that in this chapter, I would have called bullshit. I know Aizen has gotten stronger, and I know he's the king of trolls, but there's absolutely no way that he would have been capable of bringing down the Soul King's palace to the Serite. I also like the idea that it was Mayuri that had a trick up his sleeve, so kudos to him. Now, it seemed at first that we were going to get a showdown between Aizen and Mayuri, which honestly would have been really cool to see. Two very intellectual beings facing off against each other, seeing who is superior, Mayuri's technological skills or Aizen's power and strength. Unfortunately, that doesn't happen because something shoots at Aizen, this U-shaped Reiatsu pattern, which came from Nanana. Yeah, this guy lives. But it's not that really surprising considering that we saw Bazz-B surviving from the Auswählen, so yeah, I can get why Nanana is still alive. And we finally learned what the U stands for. It's Stern Reacher U, the Underbelly. Underbelly? Really? Okay. Well, at least we get to see Nanana's ability, which has something to do with that U-shaped pattern that he shot out. It seems that it created some sort of net which allowed Nanana to see if Aizen had any holes in his Reiatsu, and to accurately measure Aizen's Reiatsu distribution. His goggle visor thing that he wears kind of works like an X-ray machine, or in a way kind of like the Byakugan from Naruto. And now that I think about it, the holes kind of remind me of the chakra points in Naruto as well. Well, anyway, after finding the Reiatsu holes, Nanana pokes at the holes by shooting at them, I think, to make them wider until there was nothing left. Since Aizen was immobile on his chair, it makes him an easier target. Now, after getting shot at again, I can't tell if Aizen is feeling any pain whatsoever. It might be like a slight pinch to him, or maybe it's like a tickle to him or something, I don't know. But either way, this attack was meant to paralyze not only his body but his Reiatsu as well. And this was supposed to make him pass out, but Aizen wasn't even unconscious. Giselle, Liltotto, and Bazz-B also appear, and it seems that these four intend to prevent the Shinigami from shooting down the Soul King's palace, because Yhwach is inside. They then get surrounded by a bunch of Giselle's Shinigami zombies, to which Mayuri was surprised that Giselle wasn't even dead, which would make him or her a zombie as well. And her response? Bleh. You know, I'm surprised Mayuri didn't figure that Giselle would use the zombie ability on her or himself as well. Also, why didn't Mayuri just check to see if Giselle was really dead or not? I mean, a simple stab wound isn't going to be enough to kill her or him, so it seems that the Shinigami have no choice but to fight the rest of the Stern Reachers, while doing so buying some time for Urahara and the rest to gather the Reiatsu again and forge the gate, because thanks to Aizen, they're back to square one. So again, those 10 freaking chapters of them gathering Reiatsu was totally pointless. I'm sorry, I'm still upset over that. Anyway, Nanana seems pretty confident that he can take on all of them by paralyzing them one by one with his morphine pattern, but then he suddenly gets shot from behind by Bazz-B using Burner Finger 1. Okay, you know what? This is probably a good time to talk about this. The last time we saw Bazz-B and Nanana, they got hit by Yhwach's Auswählen, meaning that their Quincy powers were taken away and distributed on to the elite guards to revive them. So why do they still have their Quincy powers? I can probably understand Liltotto and Giselle because they escaped the Auswählen, but they still lost their Volständigs. Did they have to die for their powers to be taken away just like Robert Accutrone? Because Masaki, Ichigo's mother, lost her Quincy powers because of the Auswählen, and she was still alive until, Kingfisher killed her. Maybe this kind of Auswählen was meant to take away their Volständigs, not their Quincy powers, but that wouldn't make any sense. And speaking of Sternreachers, what about Candace and Menanas? Are they alive too, or what? In fact, we don't even know if they did get hit by the Auswählen, but maybe they did as well. Anyway, the reason why Bazz-B betrayed Nanana was to stop him from trying to attack the Shinigami. Him, Liltotto, and Giselle were offering to help because the Vandenreich lies within Serite's shadow. If Soul Society is destroyed, they will be in just as much trouble as the Shinigami. However, in return for helping them forge the gates to the Soul King's palace, they want to go with them in order to kill Yhwach, the man that has forsaken them. So the remaining Sternreachers are going to work together with the Shinigami so that they can go to the Soul King's palace to kill Yhwach. Sternreacher A, the Almighty, the Quincy King, who has absorbed the powers of the Soul King and may or may not be the new Soul King. As much as I like Bazz-B, good luck. And yeah, that's basically where the chapter ends. So yeah, that is Bleach chapter 623. What did I think? Well, this was a pretty decent chapter. In fact, I kind of like this more than last week. Granted, there are still some parts that didn't make a lot of sense to me, like Bazz-B and Nanana still being able to use their Quincy powers, and the Shinigami being back to square one on forging the gate, which was really irritating. But the rest of the chapter I actually had no problem with. As I said before, I'm glad that Aizen didn't bring down the Soul King's palace, and I like the reason as to why, and it was because of Mayuri's restraints. I am a bit bummed that we didn't get a showdown between Aizen and Mayuri, and it looked like that Shinsui was going to participate in battle, which I really did wanted to see, but we didn't, unfortunately. As for Nanana, unfortunately he's another one of the Sternreachers that was built up to be something interesting or a threat, despite his very strange appearance, but then again we've seen weirder. But at the end he was kind of a letdown. On the plus side, we at least know what the U stands for, and we've seen a bit of his abilities, unlike fucking Robert Accutrone. But I don't understand how his morphine pattern represents the Underbelly. I mean, I always thought that the U stood for understanding, because he was more of the observant type. Also, is he dead or not? Well, either way, the only letters that remain are B, which obviously represents balance, K, and N. As for Nanana being backstabbed by Bazz-B, it's no surprise because we've seen Bazz-B and Liltotto questioning what they mean to Yhwach, and they weren't all too happy with Yhwach's surprise Auswählen, which surprised me when Nanana was still fighting on Yhwach's side because he too was hit by the Auswählen. Was he not aware that Yhwach kinda backstabbed him as well? And I don't mind the whole idea of Quincy's and Shinigami working together, but usually when it comes to enemies betraying other enemies, it works depending on the reason why they would betray them. The previous reasons that we've seen before were kind of stupid, like killing your allies for the sake of gaining credit to kill your opponents, which is kind of technically what Bazz-B did a couple chapters back, but this reason for backstabbing, I don't mind. But as much as they will try, there is no freaking way that they would kill Yhwach. Still, it was cool seeing Bazz-B again. I mean, he is my favorite Sternreader so far. As for reforging the gate all over again, I hope it doesn't take too long like last time. I don't want to spend another 10 chapters of these guys gathering more Reiatsu to create this goddamn gate. But since the Sternreachers are there, maybe they'll have a better luck. Oh, and as for Aizen, it's so freaking obvious that the morphine pattern will just wear off or maybe have no effect on Aizen whatsoever. So overall, despite a couple complaints that I have, this was a pretty decent chapter. So tell me guys, what you think of this week's chapter of Bleach? Did you like it? Did you hate it? What do you think of the idea of the remaining Sternreachers helping the Shinigami? And what did you think of Bazz-B and his underbelly ability? I honestly have no idea if you call it an underbelly ability, but whatever. Let me know in the comments below. Be sure to like the video if you like it and subscribe to more videos, and be sure to check out my Facebook fan page and Google+. So yeah, that is Bleach chapter 623. I'm LearnersBomb27, and I'll see you guys later. Bye!